This episode of Blood of My Blood completely turns the story upside down. The secrets, the lies, and the tension that had been building for so long are no longer hidden. They are right out in the open now. Julia's pregnancy, Simon's obsession with bloodlines, Henry's desperate search, and even Yocasta's heartbreak all collide in ways that make us question the real motives of every single character. And just when it feels like the answers are clear, the writers throw us back into another twist. Episode 6 doesn't just move the story forward, it changes everything we thought we knew. So let's begin with Julia, because she is truly at the center of all this chaos. We've been waiting for her pregnancy to reach the point of truth, and finally, it does. Her water breaks, but instead of joy and comfort, fear takes over. Simon immediately demands marriage before the child is born. That one demand reveals everything about his intentions. It was never about Julia, never about her safety, her happiness, or even the child. For Simon, it has always been about power and control. He sees this moment as a way to secure a prophecy that was never really about him in the first place. And that's what makes him dangerous. Remember what the seer mentioned in the last episode, the vision of 2 children tied to Simon's bloodline supposedly leading to a Scottish king? That so-called prophecy gave Simon his obsession. But wasn't it vague on purpose? Many clues suggest it might not even be about Julia's baby at all. It could be pointing to Jamie and Claire instead. If that's true, then Simon has built his entire life's purpose on a lie. That's why this episode feels so intense. Every choice he makes is based on a complete misunderstanding. He believes he's protecting destiny when in reality, he's walking straight into his downfall. Meanwhile, Julia is left exhausted and terrified, surrounded by people she cannot fully trust. Mistress Porter, for example, is especially frustrating. She acts as if she's loyal to Simon, but deep down, she seems torn. Is it jealousy? Fear? Or simply her attempt to ensure her own survival in a household where no woman has real power? Her refusal to help Julia again feels more like betrayal than protection. Every time she speaks, it leaves us questioning whose side she's really on. On the other side, Henry is still searching desperately for Julia. His determination is heartbreaking, like a rope tightening around him with every step. He chases whispers, midwives, and rumors, never giving up. Finally, a midwife tells him grim news. But the big question is, can we even trust her? If she's linked to Archbug, this could all be another deception. Archbug knows how to manipulate, and it wouldn't be surprising if he fed Henry false information just to stop him. But Henry doesn't come across as someone who gives up easily. If anything, such news might only fuel his fire further. And then there's Yocasta. If her pain didn't strike before, this episode makes it impossible to ignore. Her jealousy, her bitterness toward Ellen, her longing for something she's never had, it all collapses here. And it leaves us wondering, will she make a choice that changes everything for Brian and Ellen? Because their relationship is already risky, and with Malcolm Grant still in the background, the danger only grows. Episode 6 feels powerful because all these storylines reach breaking points at the same time. Julia's labor, Henry's fragile hope, Yocasta's heartbreak, Brian and Ellen's forbidden love, and Simon's obsession, all collide like threads woven too tightly, ready to snap. And the suspense doesn't come from battles outside, but from the battles happening inside each character. Henry's storyline in episode 6 is perhaps the most heartbreaking and confusing at the same time. His entire journey is driven by faith and desperation, chasing every lead, clinging to the hope of finding Julia before it's too late. And just when he feels close, the midwife steps in with her chilling words. What she tells him isn't just news, it's the kind of message designed to break a man completely. But something about her words feels suspicious. If Julia truly died during childbirth, why are the details so inconsistent? The timing, the way the news is delivered, even the convenient presence of Archbug, it all feels staged. Archbug gains everything if Henry stops searching. By planting this false truth, Simon's grip over Julia remains unchallenged. But the bigger question is, does Archbug act purely for Simon, or is he quietly playing his own game? That's what makes him dangerous. Archibald has never seemed blindly loyal to anyone. He's clever, calculating, and focused only on what benefits him. So when Henry is fed this devastating news, is it Simon's will, or Archibald's subtle manipulation of the bigger picture? That's the kind of layered plotting that makes this episode so gripping. Meanwhile, Julia suffers through her labor in one of the most suffocating and tense scenes so far. Every glance, every word, carries the weight of fear. This isn't just about childbirth, it's about survival. Simon hovers over her like a tyrant, demanding marriage vows while she's in agony. That single moment shows us exactly who he is. Simon doesn't want Julia as a wife, he wants her as a symbol, a trophy, proof that he alone controls the prophecy. But the prophecy itself tells a very different story. The seer's words spoke of 2 children, a girl with blue eyes and dark curly hair whose time hasn't come yet, clearly Claire, and a boy destined to rise when the nation faces peril, obviously Jamie. So again, why does Simon twist this prophecy as his own? His obsession reveals not strength, but delusion. The danger isn't that he knows the truth, it's that he believes his own lies so completely he's willing to destroy anyone who doesn't fit into them. While Julia endures her ordeal, Brian and Ellen's storyline unfolds in the background. At first glance, it may feel quieter compared to the chaos surrounding Julia and Henry, but it's just as dangerous. Their relationship is passionate and raw, but it's also reckless. In a world where survival depends on alliances, their love is a ticking bomb. Murdoch is already broken-hearted, Yocasta consumed by jealousy, and Malcolm Grant, still lingering in the shadows, represents yet another risk. Each stolen glance and whispered promise between Brian and Ellen carries weight, reminding us their choices could have far-reaching consequences. The more they fight for love, the more they endanger not only themselves but everyone around them. Episode 6 beautifully contrasts these relationships. On one side, we see Simon and Julia, bound by obsession, control, and lies. On the other, Brian and Ellen, bound by passion, honesty, and choice. Yet, both are surrounded by danger. The writing makes it clear, love, in its purest or most corrupted form, can be the most dangerous force in this world. And then there's Yocasta. Her pain is written all over this episode. The scene with Murdoch is especially devastating. Just as she lets her guard down, opening herself to a moment of vulnerability, he accidentally whispers Ellen's name. That single slip destroys everything she was holding on to. Her heartbreak shifts from jealousy into something darker, bitterness that could soon turn destructive. Episode 6 hints that Yocasta may no longer remain a passive victim of her pain. Her anger simmers, her resolve hardens, and her next move could alter the lives of Brian, Ellen, and even Julia. At the heart of episode 6 lies Julia's childbirth, a moment that should symbolize hope but instead becomes suffocating with dread. The entire scene is haunting, not because of the physical pain alone, but because of the power struggles wrapped around it. Julia is trapped in a room where every person carries their own agenda. Simon sees her as the vessel of prophecy, desperate to force marriage vows out of her before the child arrives. Mistress Porter's loyalty remains uncertain, her silence feels more like betrayal than protection. And the midwife's presence is unsettling, as if she's walking a fine line between truth and manipulation. Julia herself, exhausted and terrified, fights not just for her baby's life but for her own identity in a world that refuses to give her a voice. That's what makes this birth scene unforgettable. It isn't about welcoming new life. It's about deciding whose power that life belongs to. In this twisted setting, even an innocent newborn becomes a pawn in games of politics and prophecy. But the most striking element here is the prophecy itself. We've already discussed how the seer's vision clearly points to Claire and Jamie, not Julia's baby. Yet Simon's obsession blinds him. He twists words, clings to false meanings, and builds his entire identity on a prophecy that never belonged to him. That obsession makes him terrifying, not because he knows the truth, but because he's convinced of a lie. The brilliance of episode 6 lies in how it shows the consequences of obsession. Simon believes he's fulfilling destiny, but every action he takes pulls him closer to his downfall. And Julia, standing at the center of his delusion, is forced to carry the weight of his madness. Meanwhile, Brian and Ellen's romance continues to burn brightly but dangerously. Their story is one of stolen moments, whispered promises, and raw emotion. Yet beneath the passion lies a ticking clock. The world around them isn't built to let their love survive. With Murtig carrying heartbreak, Yocasta sinking deeper into jealousy, and Malcolm Grant lingering with wounded pride, the walls are closing in fast. Every scene between Brian and Ellen feels heavier now, not just about their love, but about survival. Their relationship is a test against fate itself, and the risks grow with every step they take. Episode 6 paints their bond as the mirror opposite of Simon and Julia's. One relationship is fueled by passion and choice, the other by obsession and control. And yet, both are surrounded by danger. Yocasta's transformation is especially chilling. Once driven by envy, she now begins to harden into something more dangerous. Her pain is no longer quiet, it's shaping her into someone capable of making devastating choices. Episode 6 plants the seed that she may not crumble under heartbreak. Instead, she may lash out, deliberately and strategically. That makes her unpredictable, and unpredictability is deadly in a story built on fragile alliances. What makes all these threads so powerful is how interconnected they are. Julia's desperate struggle, Henry's devastating truth, Brian and Ellen's forbidden romance, Yocasta's heartbreak, and Simon's obsession, they are not separate stories. They are a tangled web, each thread pulling tighter with every scene. One wrong move from any character could cause the entire web to unravel. By the time this episode reaches its peak, it's no longer about who wins or loses. It's about who survives long enough to even make a choice. And that realization fills the story with unbearable tension. By the final stretch of episode 6, the weight of every secret and every choice becomes almost unbearable. The air feels heavy, and every character stands at the edge of a decision they cannot take back. Henry's arc here is devastating. When the midwife delivers her grim news, for a moment, it looks like his entire world collapses. The thought that Julia could be gone shatters him in a way we've never seen before. But look closer, there's doubt in his eyes. A flicker of disbelief. Deep down, Henry seems to know the story isn't over, that Julia's fate isn't sealed. That quiet refusal to fully accept the midwife's words gives us a hint: his search may have been broken, but it isn't finished. If anything, this crushing blow is the setup for his eventual return, stronger and more determined than ever. Julia, meanwhile, faces the nightmare of Simon's obsession head-on. Episode 6 forces her into the most vulnerable moment of her life, childbirth, while Simon looms over her, demanding marriage and claiming destiny. His delusion is on full display. He isn't motivated by love, or even pride in family. He is driven by ego and the belief that he can control prophecy by sheer force. And in chasing that lie, he destroys everything around him. What makes Julia's ordeal so powerful is the isolation. Mistress Porter's silence feels like betrayal. The midwife's words feel like manipulation. And Simon's presence feels like a prison. In this suffocating atmosphere, Julia's strength shines through. Despite the agony, despite being stripped of choice, her willpower keeps her identity alive. She refuses to be erased. That strength is what makes her one of the most powerful characters in the entire series. Parallel to this, Brian and Ellen continue their dangerous love story. Their moments are passionate, filled with desire, but also charged with dread. Every touch and every promise carries the weight of consequences waiting to explode. What's fascinating is how episode 6 uses their love to mirror Julia and Simon's twisted dynamic. Where Julia and Simon's bond is forced and corrupted, Brian and Ellen's is chosen and pure. But the danger around them makes both relationships equally fragile. And then there's Yocasta. Her storyline simmers quietly, but it's one of the most dangerous to watch. She's moved past simple jealousy. This is deeper. Years of living in Ellen's shadow, watching her sister admired and chosen, while she remains overlooked, have left scars. When Murtig slips and utters Ellen's name, it's like tearing open those wounds with a blade. Yocasta doesn't seem like the type to crumble. Instead, her pain is hardening into resolve. She may not be able to claim happiness for herself, but she could destroy the happiness of others just to balance the scales. That makes her terrifying. Unlike Simon, whose madness is loud and obvious, Yocasta's potential betrayal would be quiet, deliberate, and precise. And the danger in episode 6 is that she may finally be ready to act. Archbug's shadow looms large as well. He doesn't appear as often, but his presence is strategic. If he orchestrated the midwife's lie, then he's proven himself far more than Simon's pawn. He's a player of his own, shaping outcomes behind the scenes. That makes him one of the most dangerous figures in the story, because power in the shadows is harder to see and harder to stop. Episode 6 ultimately circles back to the prophecy, the thread that ties every storyline together. We've seen how Simon twists it, Julia suffers because of it, Henry is misled by it, and Archbug possibly manipulates it for his own gain. The prophecy is no longer just a vision of the future, it has become a weapon. And in the wrong hands, that weapon destroys lives. That's what makes Simon so frightening. His conviction is absolute. He doesn't just cling to lies, he believes them so deeply that he forces the world to bend around them. His demand to marry Julia before the child is born isn't about family or love, it's about attaching himself to a destiny that was never his. And the scariest part is that he believes it with all his heart. The midwife's role adds another unsettling layer. She feels like a chisel to Simon's hammer, quiet but still shaping the outcome. To Julia, she offers little more than cold comfort. To Henry, she delivers devastating news. Her words control both sides of the story, and yet, her true loyalty remains unclear. Is she Simon's servant? Archbug's tool? Or just another survivor trying to stay alive in the chaos? What's clear is that her presence shifts the course of events for everyone involved. Brian and Ellen's love continues to blaze, but it now feels like a candle burning too quickly. Their chemistry is undeniable, but their world is too fragile to hold it. Every kiss and every promise feels stolen, dangerous, and costly. Around them, broken hearts pile up, Murdoch's rejection, Yocasta's festering anger, and Malcolm Grant's silent heartbreak. Brian may think love is worth any risk, but episode 6 shows us that blind passion comes with consequences that reach far beyond two people. Yocasta's transformation is one of the most haunting elements of this episode. She's no longer just a jealous sister. She's a woman carrying years of wounds, now hardening into dangerous resolve. Episode 6 makes it clear that her pain won't stay contained. She may not have what she wants, but she has the power to destroy what others hold dear. And that possibility makes her one of the most unpredictable threats moving forward.